created to have some fun together, sharing and singing. So, join and enjoy.
Our love for opera brings us together. Thanks for being with us in this trip.
if that should be the case. But let's keep moving with our list that is being so fun for today. One that you already mentioned, the voce capretina.
Oof.
I leave it to the teacher to explain.
Oh my God. Well, the word comes from goat because you sing like a goat. Meh.
Yeah.
I think it was clear for all of us. And it has to do with a deficient work with your diaphragm because you're not supporting your sound and the voice from here, from the deepest part of your diaphragm support. So the voice starts to shake in upper place, and it sounds like um, and that's not vibrating, it's just shaking here. So you have to connect your voice, all your superior work with this part, and above all, use your diaphragm.
And I'm surprised to see that you could actually somehow replicate that.
Because I'm afraid of.
And let's go now for the next one that is a nasal voice. Nasality is a very common problem in most of the tesituras. And that is also very difficult to explain. So I will leave Katia to explain it.
Again, yes, we start to place our voice in the head when you arrive and you have no experience singing. It's probably one of the first exercises that your professor is going to start to work with you. You will start with an M, an A, an R, to place your voice in the mask and take it away from your throat. In this wide open voice. But you have to be constant and as a teacher you must be clear that is not the only place you're gonna use. And like I told my students, imagine your nose, it's like salt when you're cooking. Even desserts use salt. But if you use too much, your dessert, your cake, your salad, your soup, anything that you want to prepare, it's gonna be a terrible fail. So you don't have to. Um, you have to combine your nose voice, but with the rest of the spaces. For example, my voice it's it's too high, and I use my head voice most of the time, almost all the time. But it's not placing here. It is, but I also use spaces in my head, and I know I sound like Mickey Mouse, but I don't sound like this. So it's necessary, but that is.
And I was telling you that it's very difficult to explain because languages like French are in fact
Yeah.
nasal languages. They have nasal sounds. And for instance, for me, that I have been speaking French for a good number of years, I know that the right way to get the pronunciation of a given phoneme is to actually nasalize it. So your mind fights the nasal sound that you know it's the correct way to pronounce it against the vocal technique for the case of a given language, right? So,
Yep.
for example, l'amour, I know that amour is very nasal sound. It is not amour, it is amour in natural
Yeah.
French. So, if you sing l'amour,
But you
l'amour, l'amour, when you place it in the right way, then the French doesn't sound well. Also, but the specific case of this language, there are many singers of us that we are used to nasal sounds. So since we are used to do it even when we are speaking, we have difficulty to identify when we are singing, because the technique of the nasal sounds of our spoken language, somehow mixes up with the technique of singing. So if your spoken language does not use nasal sounds, don't worry, it will hardly ever happen to you. But for those who already have
try
it in their
to
language,
close your eyes to identify where you're placing your voice. And okay, in French, you have to use your nasal voice. But if you're singing Mozart and it's Italian or German, I was about to say Deutsch, German. Well, you're having a problem with the technique.
you do have a problem. And
Yeah.
the quality of the nasal sounds, nasal voices, is that the bright the brightness of the voice is usually not bright but opaque. It's usually the other way around. And I could give you a number of names of very famous singers, of a very good number of tesituras that actually have nasal sounds. You would be surprised if I tell you who they are. But that also has to do sometimes with the technique, because around, and I want to do it so complicated because it is what is called the voce in maschera, and aperto ma coperto, and there are a number of things around. But the way the play, the area of your body where you place the voice can actually produce nasal sounds. So let's not complicate it any further, but it can be complicated. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go for another one. Oh, I'm going to love this one. Typical error of many singers. Lousy, horrible pronunciation of a given language. And again, I don't want to spoil and give names because I can think of two very famous tenors who had a career or who were acknowledged of being great singers of French opera. And when I hear them, I say, oh my God, who told you to add a sound that in French doesn't exist? For example, pourquoi me réveiller? Pourquoi me réveiller? The sound is réveiller. That's the sound in French. Why? Who told you that it is réveiller? It is not réveiller. It is réveiller. And as that example, there are, in particular in French, because Italian is more like Spanish, but there are people who don't understand how to pronounce. Most of them sopranos, please don't tell them. That care too much for the sound and very few for the diction. I am going to think of a very famous Australian soprano. You can barely understand what she is singing because the sounds of her voice were beautiful, but her diction was horrible, and everybody knows that. Yes, you know who I am talking about. And Kathy already shared with us that she has perfected a lot the way to sing German, but singing German is also very difficult because of the way that language is pronounced when spoken. But tell me, how do you teach your why don't you share with us how do you teach your students to actually be understood of what they are singing?
We have to understand as singers that we serve our lyrics, we serve the text. We are not just vocalizing. Well, I don't have to worry about my text, but not all the pieces of music sounds the same or use the same source. We have a text, an important text. So you don't speak the language because I don't speak Russian or I don't know. But you have to do a phonetic work to understand what you're saying. Please translate your text to understand what you're saying and read it a lot. You have to speak it before sing it, and it will be more organic when you start to sing.
But singers need to really take it seriously.
Oh yes.
Because sometimes when you have the subtitles in your own language, what it means is you may not understand what the singer is actually singing. So you speak good French or good Italian or good Spanish, and still you need subtitles to understand what they are singing. That means a lot.
Well, you have to practice more. There's not. I don't think it exists like a tip. You have to study. You have to practice.
And I think that the advice that you gave is very good. When you're working on the pieces that you want to sing, you go for the written text. So I was thinking of Lucevano le Stelle, which the tenors usually mess up when they go for the part. You know, when they keep following on it, they start, since there is a vocal sound or a voice sound, and then there is a vocal, they usually join them. And the text loses effectivity when you do that. Of course, people may fall in love because they say, the tenor did it rightly. But the text is not what is written. So from my perspective, most of tenors really ruin Lucevan le Stelle because they don't give the proper sound to each of the syllables and the words. It is, in fact, it plays as a poem. Lucevan le Stelle, you know, and he talks about how her steps and the smell of flowers and garden. That is very, very good, very beautiful text. But since tenors keep going on for it without caring for the words, it loses sense. And as
Yes.
I think it's time that you want to share us another piece of music.
Probably now I don't want to.
That is not true. Katia always wants to sing, believe me.
Oh yes, that's true.
And this is going to be Musetta, am I correct?
C'est l'histoire. No,
No. What is it going to be?
c'est l'histoire.
This is a piece that I really love. So let's all pay lots of attention to it.
You hate it after this.
Okay.
Okay, let's try. C'est l'histoire amoureuse, autant que fabuleuse, d'un volant qui era dans un vrai comité, l'on croyait s'éveiller, que ne l'était pas. Il m'est tout il voulait mais lui ne voulait pas. Oh, voulez-vous et vous me demandez, et vous me demandez. So no vous allez Sono vous allez je vais vous le dire. Non, non, je ne le dirai Oh, quale commissione, alors que vous voterez-vous pas? Mais on ne les moderne, prenez votre langue, défendez-vous pas? Mais c'est que l'on vous serez pénalisé, et c'est qu'on vous oui, rien que vous pensez, une fois c'est l'amour s'envolera. Les conversations, mon nom je vais le dire, mais pas tout non, non, je ne le dirai pas.
And that's the way you don't sound like that.
And what I was about to say is that life is unfair because in the zarzuela the best pieces are for the baritones, and for the nice, cute, happy, hilarious songs are for the sopranos. So that just can't be fair. That can't be fair. Okay, after this very, I don't know, that piece always puts me in a very happy mood. You know that
It's a
series of
lovely piece.
I don't know. It's very nice to hear that song. Let's
It's
go for
funny.
let's go
It's a
for the
happy song.
final comments as we are approaching the end of today's program. Uh, this one is very common for all of us, and it also has to do with the evolution of the voice, which we didn't mention in the past, but maybe we can make some more comments. When we have an uneven voice, which means the voice is not homogeneous, and that has to do with what is called the passaggio. If you are somehow familiar with the vocal technique for singing, there is something called the passaggio between la voce di testa and la voce di petto, which is already two concepts that are somehow difficult to explain. So, and the thing
I
is that
will.
everybody has a different passaggio. So, where most of the vibration is either perceived in the breast, the voce di petto, and whether it is perceived in the head, la voce di testa, it changes from what is perceived here and what is perceived here. For the singer, it's difficult to manage to control how he's going to use his resources so that it doesn't sound very deep here and very light there, you know? The
Hey, that
voice.
sounds like me.
I cannot try to do it again. But you know, there are singers who you can perceive that have a very wide, powerful voice in the center, but when they go high, their voice sounds like this. Their voice doesn't sound with that richness. the voice is not homogeneous because of a problem in managing the passaggio so that the right sound is in the voce di petto and the right sound is in the voce di testa, which is a way singers have liked to call it that is much harder to explain. But I also wanted to mention that it also has to do with how your voice has been maturing, because your passaggio is managed differently when your voice is young, when it is not so much deep, the resonances are different, and as your voice matures, the passaggio usually changes. The perception that you have of your voice starts to change. So you want to use your voice in the same way when you had a lighter voice. But you don't realize that now your voice, especially for male voices, our voices tend to descend 2 notes as we get older. The center of our male voices are usually lower as we grow old. And that also means that our passaggio is somehow displaced. That is very complicated. If you're a soprano, you may not have realized that because you're not a male guy, but our voices, male voices, tend to be wider as we grow old. So if you want to have that voice that you managed when you had that bright voice, believe it or not, I could sing parts of El Conte Almaviva. So imagine with a voice like the one I have now, trying to sing Non so che dir, I could do it then. I cannot do it now. But why don't you tell us, because you must be teaching that to your students also, on the very difficult art of having an homogeneous voice in the bass, in the center, and in the upper.
Yeah, I think that, well, I know that passages exist, but I don't like to think of them like enemies. The key for me is to use all our voices all the time. For example, in case of our deepest sounds, I know that my deep sounds are not as deep as someone else's. But for example, it's a deep sound for me. But I don't rest my voice only in the chest. It has a verticality. Even when I'm singing a bass note, a deep one, um, it has a high place too. It's not because when I start to go to a higher register, it will be complicated, and obviously the whole the implementation is gonna change a lot, and you will hear me like 5 singers in one, and that's not a problem. And when I'm singing, I leave my chest open, and it has a similar color too. For example, I was thinking, Olivia. Yes, was it's up, it's a high note, but it sounds with chest. It's not like yes, was because it's uncomfortable for you as a singer, and it's uncomfortable as a listener. So it's about working on voices all the time and try to make it as similar as possible in all your extension.
And I think that it is very good that you mentioned it, because these concepts of la voce di testa, la voce di petto, which have been very misunderstood and as a consequence very applied very wrongly. Because I use the word perception. One perceives the vibration in the chest, but it does not mean that you are only using your chest, just as you clarified. You
That's right.
perceive it, but it does not mean that it's the only way it is vibrating. And singers like to think that the voice, the higher the note, the voice feels like it's going to the cranial cavity, which may sound weird for people who are not familiar with vocal technique, but that is the way it is usually taught. So some singers tend to think that their voce di testa sounds here and their voce di petto sounds here, but it's not. It's, as you explained, a mix of the two. So you have maybe in the lower notes, you have more presence of the chest, or you perceive more presence of the chest, of the breast, and you perceive less of the head. And the opposite, when you go higher, you perceive more of the head and less of the breast. But actually, the two of them are working together.
You should use all your body all the time.
Absolutely. And let's go for the final one. A wobbled voice, too much vibrato. It tends to happen with voices once the singer has passed his prime. The voice in his vibrato is... let me see. I don't think I can replicate it now. Maybe if I was sick with a flu, maybe I could at this point. Let me think.
Maybe if I'm about to die.
Maybe and it is very sad because you perceive the singer is attacking the central note with not very well, but the vibrato, instead of sounding like nice, like you see, the natural vibrato is there. Well, when they have this wobble sound, I'm not sure how to replicate it. It sounds like a parallel voice going like this, like a wobble, parallel to the
main
voice.
note, it's not clear.
And one can find it in when singers are about to retire, but it's much sadder when you find it in young singers. There are many young singers that have too much vibrato, like that horrible wobble. It tends to happen more in dark voices. Mezzos usually suffer a lot of that, and many tenors and baritones and basses as well. Sopranos, not that very much. But the thing is that when it happens to a soprano, you immediately notice. Because that wobble is not usually there. That is sad to hear, but you can, I'm not giving names again, but you can find many recordings of singers who should have retired, even if they are young, with that sound of a gobble. Would you like to add something to it?
Well, yeah, it's sad because even something like the crystal of notes, it's well, it results like difficult to recognize. So it's terrible. You have to be wise and retire at the time.
And since nobody's perfect, and well, I am not, Katia is, so it's fair. We would like to improvise for you, because yes, we are going to improvise, and you will forgive us if it doesn't work well.
Oh my God, we're going to do it.
But that's always the risk of improvising. We haven't tried it in the past, so if we fail, that will prove that we are not perfect, which was today's program. And besides not being perfect and to somehow excuse Katia on what is about to happen, remember that since this is a live recording and she is a good number of kilometers from here, she may hear the sound delayed. So don't expect synchronicity to be perfect. Timing you may notice that the timing will not be that good, but we want to have fun today. And I know that many people like it, even if you're looking at Katya's face and saying, no, this is not something.
I'm afraid, I'm worried.
You know that we can fix it if I sing both parts or if you
Because
sing both
perfection
parts.
makes me feel safe and comfortable.
It's going to be fun. So let's. I'm going to play the sound of the piano, and please tell me if you hear it well. If not, I can increase the volume.
Okay.
Because at least we need the piano in the background to somehow try to synchronize ourselves, right? Volume is good enough, or do you want me to increase it?
Well, if you could, it would be great.
I
Please.
can. So we'll do it. We will enjoy it. Hope you will enjoy it. Enjoy it. Don't criticize
And
us.
cheers.
My glass for the brindisi, you have seen it throughout the whole program. It's a 1 liter
I'm about to
glass.
finish my water.
Mine is not that nice as Katya's, but I hope it will do the job. And I hope I will not forget the lyrics. I have always known them by heart, but you know, that's one of our errors again. We sometimes singers forget
This
the
will be
lyrics.
an epic fail, I'm afraid.
So let's just enjoy it.
Okay, let's
not
have fun.
overthink it and see how it goes. And at the end, we will just say bye-bye. Okay, let's go for it. Libiamo negli cor, lici che la bellezza infiora, e la facevolo, rastine mia voluta, Libiam nei dolci fremiti, che suscita l'amore, poiché quello che al cuore onnipotente va. Viviamo amore, amor fra i collici più cari baci avrà.
Is the chorus singing?
It's up to you.
Trovoi saprò di vivere il demonio giocondo, tutto è follia, follia nel mondo, giocare e piacer, dovrò credere che suscita l'amore, quei figli
You have to enjoy it. Andiamo la tazza, se il cantico la novella il riso, in questo paradiso ne scopra il lodi. Quando non sami ancora il mio destin così, mo la tazza la